All right, good afternoon one more time. I chose this moment right after lunch because I knew everybody want to sleep. And that would be a good idea because it's easy to talk to people who are sleeping. Before I go into my little 30-minute talk, I'd like to share something. What I'm going to do in this next 30 minutes, tell you maybe 2 or 3 stories, and tell you how to tell stories in the second story. Okay? And if I use my time well, if I manage my time well, if you're left with 5 or 10 minutes, you write your own stories. And if you have time, we'll hear those stories. If you don't have time, I'll be around. You tell me your stories, and I'll give you a gift. Is that good? So that's the strategy. Pwede? I do speak Tagalog. At least I understand part of it. So about 8 years ago, I was in India, and somebody invited me to give a talk on leadership. This was a call center training institute, and they just called me and they said, can you come and talk about leadership? So there were about 24 trainers in that room, and in India also they do the same thing. Call center training, as accent training, customer service, etc., etc. So I had no prepared talk. So I just went up and I said, you know what, guys, why don't you ask me a question and I'll answer it? So they went through question number 1, 2, 3, 4. One of them says, Raju, sir, of course, I look like sir. JV mentioned that this morning. I look like a sir, so gray hair. He said, sir, what's a perfect leader? Now, prior to that, I'd gone through a lot of leadership training. We talked about leadership skills, leadership styles, leadership competencies. But nobody ever told me, what's a perfect leader? And then, actually, that was my internal reaction, that there's none. But I didn't want to call that guy a dummy, because he was my kababayan. So I kept quiet for a while. And in my head, the images of leaders that I have respected over time, they flashed through my head. Gandhi. Good leader, powerful leader, very inspirational, very visionary, but somebody shot him. Diba? So that means he wasn't good enough for everyone. Therefore, he was not perfect. Yeah? Somebody still found flaw with him. Lincoln, great leader, civil rights leader, changed the history of the world. Somebody still shot him. Here at home in the Philippines, 1983, August 21, somebody still shot a leader. Did he not? So there was somebody who was not happy with the leader's leadership styles. So there are millions of styles. In fact, to look at leadership is to look at an elephant like those 6 blind people looked at an elephant. You know that story? How many people don't know that story? Quint, you don't know that story? Oh, okay, I'll tell it to you later. So people who know this, leadership is a concept. It's not a geometrical thing. So 6 blind men go around the elephant, and each of them touch the elephant. Each of them has a different opinion. The guy who catches the trunk says the elephant is like a hose, like a fire hose. The guy who touches his leg says the elephant is like a tree trunk. Then the guy who touches the side of the elephant says the elephant's like a wall. The guy who grabs the tail says the elephant's like a rope. And the guy who touches the tusks of the elephant says the elephant is like the Taj Mahal. That's not true. I made that one up. So there's no perfect leader. There are competencies, there are styles, but the leadership tools are simple. They're easy. They are simple. They can be understood. They are not a concept. Questioning, listening, empathy, compassion, and most of all, storytelling is a leadership tool. So that's why a leader is a story. Is that good for you? Okay, so at the end of this 30 minutes, I hope you go home and be able to tell stories in your trainings, in your business meetings, in your coaching sessions, in your mentoring sessions, in your performance feedback. You'll be able to tell stories and inspire people. Okay? So story number 1 starts with once upon a time. Once upon a time, long, long ago, in a land far, far away, there lived, you like it, princess? No princess here. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, a long time ago, there lived 2 beautiful women. Really beautiful. Their beauty was legendary. people, the whole country of Israel where they lived, looked up to these two beauties. And they said, wow, how pretty, how beautiful, how wonderful, how charming these two ladies are. But as it happens to most celebrities and most good-looking people, or people who depend on their looks, these two beauties got insecure about their beauty. They become unsure, as we age. So one said to another, she said, why don't we go out onto the high street of Israel, Jerusalem, and test our beauty, see if there's still a market for it. Yeah? So the other one said, why not? Let's do it today. So both of them stepped out of their houses, went to high streets of Jerusalem. So the first one, who was a little bold, pun intended, she said, me first. So she stepped out on the high street of Jerusalem and she walked as beauties walk. The frustrating thing is, nobody looked at her. She was hurt. She said, that's impossible. I'm beautiful. Remember, I'm the legendary beauty of Jerusalem. What do I do? So she came back and she got a bit more bolder. That's grammatically wrong. But you know what I mean. Yeah? She got a bit more bolder and she walked out onto the high streets clicking her heels. And as she crossed the street, this time, let me get a glass of water. This time, people turned their faces away in disgust at her boldness. Oh my God, she said, that's impossible. People used to like this. People used to love me. So she came back and she said, this time I'm going to be my boldest. The men in this room can let their imagination run free. So at her boldest, she walked out onto the streets of Jerusalem. The people of Jerusalem, the rabbis, the business people, the shoemaker, the cobbler, etc., they ran into their homes. They shut the windows and the doors to this lady's beauty. She was devastated. And she came back and she said, God, I'm never, ever going to expose myself again. Never, ever is also grammatically wrong. So, but you get the message. The second one said, Minaman. They spoke Tagalog, of course. They said, Minaman, ako muna. So this time, the second one, she put on her technical raincoat. She put a few feathers and flowers in her hair, and she put jingle bells in her anklets, and she walked out onto the streets of Jerusalem. And people on the street, they came out of their houses and they said, wow, ganda naman, beautiful, wow, fantastic. They applauded her. They sang songs for her. And she was swinging her purse and swinging herself, talking to the kids, kidding with the rabbis over here. Not here, in Jerusalem. They're kidding with the rabbis. And that was it. Two beauties. One gets applauded, the other one doesn't. My question to you, what could be the difference between these two beauties? They were both beautiful. Oh, could you try and guess their names? Okay, give up. Give up, no long. The first one was called Truth. And the second beauty was called Story. I'll repeat that one more time. The first beauty, who became bold, bolder, and boldest, her name was Truth. And the second one, who covered herself in a raincoat, technical a raincoat, put a flower and jingle bells in her shoes, she was called Story. That's the power of story. When you wrap truth around into a story, people buy it, people applaud it. But the moment you become bolder or boldest with your truth, people run away from it. Does that make sense? So anytime you want to tell the truth, put on a technical raincoat to that, put some flowers on it, and people will absorb it, buy it. It's all about presentation. Whether it's a one-on-one presentation, one-on-many, or a presentation like that, it's all about how you package what you want to do. Does that make sense? So, if you like that, say yeah. Okay, do you want the story number 3 now? No, the first one was about me and this perfect leader guy. See, you were so involved. So what do stories do? Stories activate the whole brain. What does that mean? That means most all of us are left brain dominated. We've been trained like that all our lives to remember numbers, to remember alphabets, to remember poetries, to remember how a system works. Our right brain is usually at peace, doesn't do anything. But when you tell a story, that left brain goes to sleep, and the right brain wakes up, and your whole brain works together. It's easy to understand stories. Does that make sense? Step number 1 activates the whole brain. Seeps through cerebral defense, logical. When you tell something logical to people, they want to analyze it. They want to think about that. Let me see that. Step number 1, step number 2, this is it. Those are hard-edged information. People don't buy that easily. Yeah? But when you tell a story, people relax. They say, oh, sige, kwento lang naman yan. Right? Then they listen to you and they participate. Kwentohan. Invoke creativity and inclusiveness. So when I was sharing the story of my experiences in leadership training, did your personal thoughts come up about your own training, about your own exposure to leadership? Did that happen, yes or no? So that's inclusiveness. People talk about the speaker was not participative. He did not interact. Tell a story, even though you're sitting down and not moving around playing Sao Sao Suka, you are still interacting with me. Because your personal stories are surfacing from the depths of your unconscious. And that's what happens when you tell somebody a story. So it invokes creativity and inclusiveness. Catalyzes rapport and action. So when I told you my story, you know the kind of a person I am. It gives you a glimpse into who I am. So when you interview a person and you tell that person, hey, tell me about your life. So the moment that person shares his life story, you get a silip sa buhay niya. You get a silip sa character niya. Does that make sense? Is my Tagalog good? Okay. So you get a silip of the person behind the front. That's the one. So catalyzes rapport and action. Stories are about hope and inspiration. Your lives are about hope and inspiration. Yeah? In your lifetime, if you have values, if you have belief systems, if you have simple truths that you follow, they have all been inspired by stories of your childhood. About the sights, the sounds, and the smells of your childhood, the moment you went to church with your family. Or when your mom sat you down and talked about a complex concept called discipline. Yeah? You learned that from mom. Or maybe about teamwork through your dad. Yeah? That makes sense. So it kind of catalyzes rapport and action. You want to do things after you hear a story. Anchor into our emotions for life. Through the defenses of our conscious brain, through the defenses of our left brain, deep inside is our, what is known as the beastly brain, the heart of our mind. Physiologically, it's represented by amygdala. That's where your most powerful emotions are. Stories go right in down there and settle down. So you tell somebody a cuento about your personal experiences, about your sharing, about your personal pain, it goes and settles down inside. Does that make sense? So 5 good reasons to share stories. By the way, if you look at your handout, these things are there. All you have to do is fill in the blanks.